tell us some good experiences you have had in passive investing. Were they surprise to you, or just tell us something which
God, where do I start? I can go across a lot of different things. I will say that I've been, the funny thing is what comes to mind, which is a little ironic, is that 99% of my focus is low risk passive cash flow. 1% of my focus is in startups. And I actually don't look for startup investments because they're the wrong profile for me. But what happens is that sometimes I have to make a bet on somebody. It's like, I'd be silly not to make a bet on this person who I know. And then I kind of like the idea well enough and it fits within certain criteria I've created for myself. And I've been very fortunate to have some very amazing, multiple returns in some companies that maybe some people would know. And so I've been very fortunate with that. And I've been able to then take that money and reinvest it into more cash flow, which has been fantastic. I'm invested with the 5th largest operator of ATMs in the US, and I've been invested in ATMs since 2008. Not with that operator, it's a different operator, but the second operator came, the larger one, in 2017, I think. That's probably been one of my favorite consistent cash flow sources of all things. I've actually averaged, I don't know the exact number, I'm not backed into it, but let's call it like about 30% cash on cash per year since 2008, right? So that's like 15 years later. And by the way, when you compound that return and keep reinvesting, the compounding is amazing, right? I've invested with the largest private owners of mobile home parks in the US, largest portfolio, over $1 billion since 2009. They've done an unbelievable job. I think, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think they literally added an additional 2,000 homes into their mobile home parks across the portfolio in the last 2 years alone. Or 3 years alone during the pandemic and stuff. It was crazy. So they've done an unbelievable job. And mobile home parks are one of my favorite asset classes because it's one of the lowest turnover rates. Most people stay for a very long time for a lot of reasons. And if you own you have to invest in the right type of park in the right location. There are different types of parks with the right managers, but that's a great cash flow vehicle. And I want to preface something we didn't talk about today, but I will say I do find it to be a very dangerous time to invest right this second. So these are asset classes I like, but some of them don't really make sense at this time unless they're very unique opportunities. And so, it has to be the right timing. And I think that's something we didn't discuss today. It's very, very important because I speak to a lot of new people who call me up and say, okay, I just saved up my first batch of money. I'm looking for my first opportunity. And the first thing I say to them is, do you have an opinion about where the real estate cycle and economic cycle are? Have you thought about that? And most of them don't think about that. They're like, okay, I want to save the money and get ready and go. But the problem is that it doesn't mean that the timing is right. And if you don't invest in the right timing, you can really shoot yourself in the foot. And I'm just going to give an easy example for everybody to understand. If you called me up in January of 2007 and said, I've got a lot of money, I just saved it all up from the last 3 years, how do I find 5 opportunities to invest $1 million? I would tell you, this is the wrong timing, right? And in retrospect, now you know that's correct. And I like using that example just so people really understand what I'm talking about. Because right now, we're in the middle of prices adjusting, and we're recording this in February of 2023. Interest rates are continuing to go up. Prices have come down, and in my opinion, are probably going to go down more. There's a very high probability of a recession in the second half of this year. And when you add all this stuff up, if you invest today, you may be going into an asset that's worth less at the end of the year, which is really counterproductive. And so you have to look for very unique opportunities right now. And so I'd like to tell people it's a great time to learn because, you're not missing out on that much while you're learning today. And then you may get in at the exact perfect timing, right? Imagine getting in at 2009 and starting your investing career then. That's the same idea that might be coming up in a year or two from here. So great time to learn, not missing out on that much right now, but don't be overly zealous to invest. At the same time, it's very subjective. So you may find it's a very good time to invest. That's nothing wrong with your opinion, right? Just make sure you've taken the time to understand where we are in these cycles so that you're not just randomly jumping in without understanding that and mistakenly shooting yourself in the foot. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, what you said just now, Jeremy, that is $1 million answer to a lot of folks, all these new people, who are willing to jump in and most of them, those who are new, they'll end up hurting themselves, because they were new, they didn't have the insight to understand where they were in the market cycle. I'm a CCM also, so I understand this completely, what you are talking about. But February of 2023, this is the time when you should be patient. You should have patience, take a step back, learn, prepare yourself, and wait for the opportunity that is coming down the pike, hopefully in 12 months from now, and you get in at that time, that could take you for a ride. But if you get in now, you will not be able to come out of the deal. I mean, I think that's what, Jeremy, you are mentioning also.
That's right. You're just increased risk at the moment. And the greatest part about this, and we're talking about this at this timing, is that it doesn't appear like we're going to have very long to see how much the interest rates go up. And also it doesn't seem it's going to be very long until we figure out if there's going to be a recession and what the impact will be, right? So the risk is high, but the timeline is very low to avoid the risk. And that's a really good equation for somebody right now.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, maybe it's 12 months, at most,
Yeah.
where we start seeing a lot of opportunities, which could take you. I mean, if you get in at that time, hopefully that will take you for a ride for the life, I guess.
Yeah, that could be possible. So, and I've had, I know we got sidetracked in my answer, but I've had a lot of I've been very fortunate. I've invested with an apartment operator who does low-income housing tax credit and tax abated opportunities. And in the last 2 years, it's been very difficult for me to feel comfortable investing in anything, and even multifamily. But I've invested in a whole number of these tax abated opportunities, which add a tremendous amount of value at closing without any execution or operational risk. So much padding that I was comfortable going into them. I could share some numbers, but so I've been very fortunate to find some unique opportunities during difficult times, and then just find some good operators overall. But I will say, in my opinion, the operator is more important than the opportunity. They're both extremely important, but if I had to choose, the most important would be who you're making a bet on. I like to give people the very simple example. I live in LA, I live close to LA, which is, you can invest in the best building on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills in the most prime with great tenants. But if that person runs that building to the ground, you're going to give the keys back. You're going to have nothing. You're going to lose your equity, right? And then vice versa. You can invest in the worst building with the best operator who executes flawlessly, and you've made a boatload of money in like a very bad area, even potentially, right? I'm not saying you should do either of those, but I just like giving the really easy example. So who you're making a bet on is absolutely imperative.
This is super awesome. I mean, these kind of nuggets you can get only from those who are experienced in the real estate, not from somebody who is new, a couple of years under their belt. Yes, people are learning, but those who have seen it all, I mean, you're talking about 21 years, 22 years of experience.